start talking about self-directed learning and really how to empower people with those skills, there's another topic that's important for us to explore, and it's this idea of the digital divide. So I like to kind of visualize that, even sort of imagine these two people that are running along, and somehow this one person, it's like there's this huge chasm, right? And the two people are running toward the chasm, and the one person is coming up to the chasm, but they don't slow down at all. It's like they're ready to jump off the ledge, right? And yet when they hit the chasm, all of a sudden their foot hits the air and they don't sink. And they find themselves walking right across the chasm to the other side, right? And then the other person is really, kind of nervous. I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna jump off a cliff, and I've never been able to walk on air. So that person maybe just stands there and doesn't try to come across. Or maybe they try to step across and they fall down. Well, that image, that kind of imaginary image is sometimes what I think about with this idea of the digital divide. And there's a bit of contention and a bit of debate about what the digital divide is and is not, and how much of an issue it really is. And I tend to lean more on the side that it's a pretty significant issue, maybe even a massive one that we need to address in our society. So as we talk about the digital divide, we're talking about the fact that there are some people who have the resources and they have the access that they need to take advantage of life in a connected world, and there are other people who don't. Now, this kind of goes in sort of historically, there are like these three phases. The first one is the conversation about the digital divide in terms of hardware and software, the haves and the have-nots. If you have a computer, you can take advantage of what a computer can do. If you have internet access, you can take advantage of what that does. If you have these different tools, you can benefit from what they have to offer, and if you don't, well, you don't get to benefit as much. And in fact, President Obama had a push for funding to try to get the internet in the homes of low-income families. And some people are looking at that and saying, why in the world would we start spending money on giving people internet access? What about food and jobs and other kind of fundamental pieces? And the argument behind that, whether you agree with it or not, is that we've come to a time in our society where being disconnected from the digital world puts you at this significant disservice compared to other people. Think about how many jobs are only posted online. It's the only way you'd even find out about whether or not they exist. Think about all the times that you go to fill out some paperwork or to learn about something, and they direct you to a website or to an online form to fill out. And if you ask for it in paper, they might even reply now, well, we don't do paper. We don't do that anymore, right? So this is becoming more and more of an issue for the digital divide in terms of hardware and software. But even if a person has all of that, there's also kind of a second phase to the digital divide that's pretty important. And people talked about that second phase early on in terms of teaching. So, okay, maybe you have the internet, maybe you have the computer, but you're going to a school that doesn't teach you very well how to take advantage of it or how to use it. And others might talk about it, you just don't have training available, free training available to help you out. So you have the tool, but you don't really know how to use it. And then there's also this third phase of the digital divide that's really internal. It's psychological. And it's the divide of the one person who says, I can, and the other person who says, I can't. And once you have the access and the technology and the resources, I'd argue that is one of the most important aspects of the digital divide for us to begin to tackle. What about those internal barriers that are keeping people from really thriving and taking advantage of life in this new connected world? And how do we get at some of